Hello and welcome. My name is Zafar Iqbal, and you are watching the Mojo Story. Now, protesters placed the body of Ranjit Singh on the Jammu Rajouri road on Wednesday. They were demanding compensation and a job to the kin of Ranjit Singh. Now, Singh was killed in a grenade attack on a newly opened wine shop on Tuesday night in North Kashmir's Baramulla district. Three other employees were also injured. Now, the incident came days after Rahul Bhat, a Kashmiri Pandit government employee, was killed in his office in Badgam district. We're seeing protests from Kashmiri Pandits since then in Pandit colonies in the valley. They also took out candlelight march and protested in places like Lal Chowk. They are demanding security for themselves in the Kashmir Valley and also a transfer to safer places of the Union Territory like Jammu till the situation becomes conducive and they can come back to the valley. To discuss this entire issue, we're joined by an eminent panel. We joined from Jammu by Zafar Chaudhry, who is a senior journalist. We're also joined by Sunil Pandita, who is a Kashmiri Pandit leader. We're joined also by Manish Kaul. It's not his real name. We have protected his identity. He is a Kashmiri Pandit government employee who is also going to talk to us about the issues really faced by the government employees in Kashmir. And also from Jammu, we're joined by Brigadier Anil Gupta, who's from the BJP. And in the course of discussion, we'll also be joined by Ifra Jan of the National Conference. But before we go to our panelists, if we can play up those visuals of today where people were protesting on the Jammu Rajouri road. They had placed the body of Ranjit Singh there. They were demanding compensation and clearly angry voices. They were asking questions from the government that how are the people safe in the Kashmir Valley? Common people who go to work there, what is their crime? If we can play up those visuals to start with.
पाकिस्तानी आतंकी लगातार जारी रखे हुए हैं। सुंदरबनी के सब डिस्ट्रिक्ट सुंदरबनी जो था उसके
Well, Brigadier Anil Gupta, it's the BJP's government in the center. Jammu and Kashmir is a union territory. What is the government going to do for the safety of ordinary people who come to work in Kashmir, be they Kashmiri Pandits who are government employees and people like Ranjit who had come to Kashmir to earn a livelihood?
The government is responsible for the security and the government is doing its job. The government is trying to provide a safe environment. The security forces are at job. And recently in a meeting held at the Home Minister in Delhi, the Home Minister made it very clear and he's asked the security forces to even go more, I would say, vigorously after the terrorists.
But we've been hearing those assurances in the past also, but nothing seems to be changing on the ground. Now, this incident has come days after Rahul Bhat, the government employee, was shot dead in his office. And since then, we've been seeing Kashmiri Pandits protesting and really asking for security. It's basically the right to life that they are asking for.
Zafar, you tell me yourself, how is it possible for the government to provide security to each and every person?
Yeah.
They are targeting the vulnerable people, but then the number of vulnerable people is so large that everybody cannot be protected. Earlier it was saying Kashmiri Pandits have been targeted, now a labor has been targeted, somebody working in a shop has been targeted. A few days earlier, even a Kashmiri policeman was targeted. So the
Yes.
question is that it is very, very difficult, I say virtually impossible for the government to provide security to each and every individual. The government can only do is to provide a secure environment. And that is what the government is working towards.
Okay, let's go to Manish. Manish, the government job is to provide a secure environment. Do you think that any headway has been made in that direction and you change your mind, people like you who are government employees working in Kashmir, or uh, there is still uncertainty and you're still unsure what you're going to do, whether you're going to stay back in the valley or you're going to move out?
Firstly, I want to begin with regarding this the entire Prime Minister's employment package for Kashmiri Pandits, and I would answer Anilji's the security aspect of providing security to each and every individual is difficult. First, I would like to begin with this Prime Minister's package for Kashmiri Pandits, which was announced in 2008 by Manmohan Singh, and by 2010, Pandit employees begin to they were recruited under this package, and they came here to Kashmir. It was a rehabilitation package to start with. Government had promised us so many things to begin with, whether it was security, whether it was posting in headquarters, district headquarters, in secured zones, whether it was accommodation, other service related issues. 12 years into this package, almost 5,000 Kashmiri Pandit employees are presently working under this package. 12 years down the line, 8 years of Modi government, not a single promise at the part of government has been fulfilled. Whether it was accommodation, whether it was posting in secured zones, whether it was promotions, whether every promise what government had made, government has projected this as a rehabilitation package. But I'm sorry, this rehabilitation package has miserably failed. And in this entire 8 years of Modi government, they have done nothing regarding the issues which the employees are facing, whether it's the accommodation issue, whether it was the security issue, whether they are service related issues. Nothing has moved forward.
And is there any sort of a decision that's been made by the employees in Kashmir? We know that they are demanding that they be transferred out of the
See,
valley. Have they resumed their work, or they are
see,
still waiting
Zafar,
from a word from the government?
See, Zafar, what government is doing is they are employing cosmetic measures. They are trivializing this entire issue of these employees by trivializing. They are giving us these cosmetic measures by coming out with orders of service related issues. Killing of Rahul Pandit is not a service. Rahul Bhat is not a service related issue. He was shot dead right inside in Tehsil headquarters in the office of the executive magistrate. The
So
safety of
we know.
Kashmiri Pandits is not a service related issue. Let me remind this UT government. They are giving cosmetic measures. Let me tell you one more thing. You will see from the past 2 days, divisional commissioner is coming out with orders that I'm going to transfer these people from the vulnerable areas to the district headquarters. Let me tell you one anecdote. One of my sisters, she went to DivCom's office a month back. सर मुझे मेरी पोस्टिंग जो है मेरे पेरेंट डिस्ट्रिक्ट में कर दीजिए अनंतनाग में आपने मुझे पुलवामा भेज दिया आपने मुझे कुपवाड़ा भेज दिया and the divisional commissioner's office humiliated my sister and his husband and said आप माइग्रेंटों की मुझे क्या माइग्रेंटों का ही ठेका है आपने जॉब नहीं करनी है तो लीव आप दलाल बने हो
So,
और आज फिर कैसे वो पॉसिबल है हाउ ही इज ट्रांसफरिंग दोज एम्प्लॉइज नाउ टू देयर पेरेंट डिस्ट्रिक्ट्स if it was not possible a month back now how is it possible today killing of Kashmiri Pandits employees is not a service related issue it's an issue of right to life we want to live we have given enough to the government the grapevine हमने 12 साल यहाँ नौकरी की अब हम कैनन फॉडर नहीं बनना चाहते बीजेपी गवर्नमेंट का
so you say that those are cosmetic measures and Pandits don't want to become the cannon fodder. But
we
before
have
I
a
go
single
to,
point demand we have a single
yes,
point demand shift us to safer places
yes,
outside Kashmir division until the security scenario improves in Kashmir
yes,
Valley we will come back
yes, that's very clear. But before I
but हम
go to
बलि के बकरे
Sunil
नहीं बनेंगे
Pandita,
बीजेपी
but
गवर्नमेंट के लिए
before I go to Sunil Pandita, if we can play up those shots of Kashmiri Pandits protesting in the valley. We saw those images when they were lathi charged and force was used to disperse them in Badgam at Sheikhpura near the migrant colony, and also they held candlelight vigil at many places in the valley. If we can play up those shots before I go to Sunil Pandita, uh, just briefly, if we can show those.
Down. Administration down. Administration down. We want justice. We want justice. We want justice. We want justice. No.
Sunil Panta, I remember a couple of years ago, I did a story in Jammu. Of course, you were leading a group of Kashmiri Pandits who wanted to come to Kashmir for jobs. They say that they're ready. They are in fact approaching the overage limit, and they should be called for interviews. They should be given the jobs so that they come back to Kashmir and to settle down in Kashmir against those government jobs. But now we are seeing a completely different situation. Those who are working here say that please transfer us outside of the valley. What do you make of this?
सर सिंपल सी बात है. फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल आई सपोर्ट मिस्टर कोल की, क्योंकि जिस हिसाब से इस भाई ने मेरे बताया कि मतलब आज के डेट में जो सिचुएशन है वहां पर, चूंकि ये वहां पर बैठे इन्होंने ये 12 साल जो है पूरे झेले है. लेकिन बड़े अफसोस से ये कहना पड़ता है कि जिस हिसाब से हमने मोदी गवर्नमेंट को लाया था सेंटर में और स्टेट में, जिस हिसाब से आज यूटी गवर्नमेंट आज के डेट में है, ये बीजेपी गवर्नमेंट है. लेकिन उसके बाद भी जो है ये आज भी जो वही एक्सपेरिमेंट कर रहे हैं कि जिससे जो है मुझे लगता है कोई फायदा नहीं है. और मैं अपील कर रहा हूं आपके माध्यम से इन भाइयों को कि तब तक आप नहीं जाएंगे ड्यूटी पर जब तक इन ये लोग जो है जितने भी नेता लोग हैं जब तक नहीं अपना पीएसओ छोड़ेंगे, ये खुलेआम मार्केट में घूमेंगे, तब तक आप ड्यूटी पर नहीं जाएंगे. हमारे पास इतना सोर्स है, हम भीख मांग के जो है कि आपको खिला देंगे, लेकिन आपको हम मरने के लिए वहां नहीं छोड़ेंगे. अब बात रहेगी कि जो पोस्ट थे कि जो यहाँ पर जम्मू में बैठे थे कश्मीर में सर्वाइवल करने के लिए, हम लोग बेसिकली कश्मीरी पंडित आज भी जो अपनी धरती माँ को बड़ा प्यार करते हैं. लेकिन क्या करें, बदकिस्मती से हमारे जो पॉलिटिशियन है वो खाली हमें जो है फुटबॉल की तरह खेल रहे हैं. जब जो उनको मौका मिल रहा था वो खेल रहे हैं. आज तो नहीं कह सकते हैं आपकी पीडीपी ने ये किया, कांग्रेस ने ये किया, फलानी पार्टी ने ये किया, नेशनल कॉन्फ्रेंस ने ये किया. आज तो फुल फ्लैज मेजॉरिटी है बीजेपी की. आज तो इसको स्टेट यूटी में जो है इसको कोई ऑब्जेक्शन भी नहीं करने वाला, क्वेश्चन भी नहीं करने वाला. इसके बाद भी यदि एक भगत सिंह जो कश्मीर में जाके जो है अपना जस्टिस मांग रहा, उसके बाद जो उसके ऊपर लाठियां बरसा रहे हैं, उसके बाद जो उसके ऊपर टायर गैस बरसा रहे हैं, मुझे लगता है ये जो है ना बहुत ही अफसोस की बात है. इससे मुझे आज शर्म आ रहा है कि मैंने पता नहीं क्या पाप किया कि मैं अपने इस देश में जो है मैंने जन्म लिया. क्योंकि ये बहुत ही ज्यादा जो है जिस घर में हमारा जिस कुंभ से हमारा एक भाई जो है शहीद हो गया, वो भी जबकि जो वहां पर जहां पर लोगों को जस्टिस मिल रहा है वहां पर उसका जो है कत्लेआम हुआ. और लेकिन ये अभी तक जो हमारे नेता जो है समझ नहीं रहे, आज भी जा रहे हैं उनके पास. और बड़ी मतलब बेशर्मी की बात है सर, बीजेपी जा रही है बीजेपी के पास जो मेमोरेंडम देकर. अगर वाकई में रविंद्र रैना जी के पास इतनी सिंपैथी थी कि वेसु में एक लड़का ले जाता, बड़गाम से एक लड़का ले जाता, मैं आपका जो है अनंतनाग से एक लड़का लेके जाता, बारामूला से एक लड़का लेके जाता, वहां पर एलजी साहब उनको मिलाते, इनको भी पता चलता कि एक्चुअल बात क्या हुई है. लेकिन ये कश्मीरी पंडित जो बलि का बकरा
Sunil Pandita, delegations of BJP met with Kashmiri Pandits here in the valley and also in Jammu. I would like to go to Ifra Jan. Ifra, we've been seeing a delegation of the PAGD.
Let me complete your question. Let me answer your question.
Hold on, Pantaji. Ifra Jan, we saw a delegation of the Gupkar Alliance went and met with the Lieutenant Governor. Farooq Abdullah also was one of the members of that delegation. Obviously, the concerns are very genuine that there has been an upswing in violence in the valley, particularly targeting of the minorities. But this is not the first time this has happened. It's happened in the past when National Conference was ruling the state of Jammu Kashmir. The PDP was in power. BJP representative telling us that they are trying to create a secure environment for the people to live. It's not possible to give security to each and every individual.
You see, can you hear me? Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay. You see, the first thing that the BJP spokesperson said was that it is not possible for us to give security to each and every person. I think nobody here is that stupid to actually demand security for each and every person. What essentially we are saying that your larger security grid should be strong enough to intercept such attacks and make sure that these attacks do not happen. We do not talk about one PSO for one person, we talk about the larger grid. That is the first thing. Now, even if that is not possible, then the question everybody would ask is that why is it that the Prime Minister and the Home Minister of our country lied on the floor of the Parliament when Article 370 was abrogated? I would want to remind you of the promises. They said, 2 mahine mein sara terror khatam ho jayega after Article 370 is abrogated. This was said on the floor of the Parliament. And they said that by 2022, by the end of 2022, almost all Kashmiri Pandits would be back. Now, in the middle of 2022, I'm afraid the kind of demands we are seeing, there's anything that Kashmiri, far from Kashmiri Pandits coming back, we actually see a sort of a reverse exodus. So the question isn't them saying that, okay, we can't do it, it's difficult to do it.
Haven't
The
some
question is
things
that why were these.
haven't some things changed on the ground? There, the government says that there is no stone pelting happening anywhere. There have been many successful anti-militancy
Yeah.
operations. There's a sense of security on the ground. There are no shutdowns taking place. What do you say when the government, when the BJP comes up with those claims about normalcy in the valley? The tourist inflow has increased. There are
Mhm.
bookings. Gulmarg is booked. Pahalgam is booked. People are doing their business. What do you have to say?
You see, Zafar Saab, a lot of these narratives are fed, and these narratives are created not for the people of Jammu and Kashmir, but for their electorate in the rest of the country, the mainland. So they constantly create these quote unquote Naya Kashmir stories, Naya Kashmir narrative, so that they can give a sense of relief to the people living outside Jammu and Kashmir who do not know of the ground situation. Now, coming to the fact that they say that stone pelting has gone down, this has gone down, the reality is that while terror activities in Jammu and Kashmir have not actually gone down, what has happened is that they've taken a different shift. For example, you have phases of terror activities. Stone Earlier we used to have stone pelting. Now we stone pelting has given way to actually a huge number of increase, a disproportionate number of increase in the number of grenade attacks. They do not talk about that. They say that the number of attacks on the security forces have gone down, except that the number of attacks on civilian population, including people like Rahul Bhat or Riaz Ahmed, have actually gone up, and including non-locals. They say that the security, we have so many tourists, this and that, except you've constantly said, do not take tourism as a measure of normalcy. We have seen larger numbers. Never pretend that there is normalcy when it's not. And except
Right.
we constantly tell them that, even in post 2019, the terror regions have now shifted. For example, earlier, terror activities used to be found in, Anantnag, Kupwara, Anantnag district primarily, and then, Shupian was the hotbed of terrorism just a couple of
Yes.
years back. Now it's all moving to Srinagar. So it's
So,
not that
so,
the
so,
terrorism has
so,
gone down. It's a
so
pattern is
actually,
shifting.
it is changing the pattern. That is the
Yes.
point of the National Conference representative. But Zafar Chaudhry, you have been covering Jammu and Kashmir for so many years. You have been analyzing the situation. Is just pattern that is changing, or there is a real change on the ground both ways? Whether there is an escalation of violence, targeting of minorities, this did not happen in the first time. This happened in October. Non-locals were targeted, laborers were targeted. Then there was a lull for a few months, and then again we saw a Kashmiri Pandit being targeted, and yesterday there was this attack on a wine shop. Is this just a change of pattern, or you think that these are just a routine up and down surge of violence in Kashmir?
No, no, it's not a routine up and down kind of search. It's a very dangerous trend. If you look at the statistics you just played out, that 38 persons were killed across 2021, and 9 of them were the religious minorities. If you compare this data with, say, for example, just one single month any year across 1990s, so you would find that the number of killings are too small, too little as compared to maybe a number of persons killed way back in 1990s. But what is happening, it's very dangerous. It's becoming very micro, very personal, and very targeted. So, which is very dangerous. I mean, it strikes with an element of surprise, and it's very difficult to predict that what is going to happen next. So, there have been attacks on the government officials, on the cops. You strengthen security there, and then there is a spree of attacks on the minorities. You go there, and for example, this attack that took place on the wine shop yesterday. But the problem, I think, is that government appears to be a little clueless and appears to be without a clear strategy to deal with the situation. I think the government went to the town a bit too early with its normalcy claim. You'll find more than 100 speeches online of the top government functionaries, including the Prime Minister and the Home Minister, the security czars, and the experts of the strategic affairs. That post 2019 August 5, the situation has completely changed, as Ifra also pointed out. So what has exactly happened is that they created one massive event and that was not followed by a process. And it was given to understand that there wasn't any problem. Article 370 and this special status, etc., this was a problem. I don't think that Article 370 was much of a problem, because those people, they were not demanding Article 370 or any special status. There was an entirely different thing. So this prolonged and protracted conflicts, they needed a prolonged and patient process of peace building. What is absent today,
actually,
what is
the
absent today is the process. There is no process of creating peace. You cannot enforce peace by security grid or anything. So there is no process that's going on the
there
ground.
is no process of establishing peace. Zafar
Absolutely
Chaudhry
not.
says
Absolutely not.
that actually there was no concrete plan to bring peace in the Kashmir Valley and in other areas of Jammu and Kashmir after the abrogation of Article 370. Brigadier Saab, what do you have to say?
Firstly, I must say that the spokesperson of NC always tells lies on the TV. She said that in Parliament, was said that within 2 months the terrorism will be finished. I challenge her if she can show any of such cuttings, any of such speeches. She can prove that. She should continue as a this thing spokesperson. She should quit. Secondly, now to say that there is no normalcy, or after 370 everything will be fine, there's no process being followed. Question is, it is the proponents of the continuation of 370 who are not happy with the removal of 370, that they are creating such an environment so that the peace does not prevail in Valley. They are unhappy. They do not want the Kashmiris to prosper. They
No,
do not want their
but
business
whether
to
they are
restart.
happy or unhappy, that has nothing got to do with the
Please listen to
incidents that are taking place.
you didn't interfere with them. Please listen to me. Don't interfere when I'm speaking.
Yes,
Yes,
please go
when
ahead.
we talk of processes, processes are continuous. They are not announced. A lot of measures have been taken place. The government's thrust is towards bringing in or improving the economy of Kashmir. People must earn livelihood. They should not be dependent on others. They should be self-sufficient. The government of Jammu and Kashmir should be self-sufficient, not dependent on the center. For that, a lot of measures are being taken. To say that we went too early to the this things announcing normalcy as return, there was a reason for that. We wanted people to come and invest in Kashmir. They wanted, because unless this image is there, that normalcy is there, the people will not come and invest. People have to invest huge money, huge funds. So for all this, environment was to be created. The security forces went all out. We also, for the first time, the people other than the terrorists, that is the fifth columnist, or whatever I say about the eco people who are involved in terrorism, the terror supporters, actions being taken against them. So all these things are going on simultaneously. The killings, I tell you, and I keep saying, as long as the last gun remains in Valley, the killings will continue. And for that, the entire Kashmir has to cooperate. The Kashmiris have to understand this. By just crying horse on the TV and by shedding crocodile tears, the same Gupkar alliance went to president, to the governor. Where were they in 90s? They were the ones who were supporting all this. When all these people were being hounded out of Kashmir, what were these people doing then? Where were they?
Let's give Ifra Jan a chance to respond. Let's give her a chance to respond. Ifra Jan, in saying
first of all,
of course it was important to give an impression of normalcy, so that even if it was done beforehand, to bring in investments to create that atmosphere in Kashmir Valley.
You see, it's very unfortunate. What I can understand from Brigadier Sahab's comments is probably that the government lied to the people of the country so that they would come and invest when there was no normalcy as such. And if there was normalcy, and if they continue to have normalcy, the kind of normalcy they claim, then the question obviously would arise, why has the statehood not been restored? I suppose that was also a claim that the Home Minister, made on the floor of the Parliament, unless Brigadier Sahab comes and says कि वो भी नहीं कहा था, Ifra Jan is lying, there was no such claim. Now, keeping that aside for a moment, constantly this lie has been repeated so many times that when the previous exodus in 1989 happened, it was under the watch of National Conference. We have constantly showed through data and through facts everywhere that it happened to be under Governor Jagmohan Malhotra's rule, and in the center, it actually was, yes, 2 days before Jagmohan, 2 days before Jagmohan Malhotra was appointed as the governor, Farooq Abdullah's government had actually resigned. And then
What about
in the center, you had the BJP government in alliance with the VP Singh government. Do not know of any speech that the BJP government is given. Now, that is the point
Well,
that, where were
uh,
these people? They
if
were hand in
we're
glove.
going in a different zone,
Yeah,
let's try and
we're going in.
come back to the main topic. And I think
Yes.
it's also important to get a perspective of Kashmiri Pandits who have been protesting in Kashmir Valley. We're seeing first time protests taking place in different areas where there are Kashmiri Pandit colonies. Uh, in one of those colonies, we saw actually women banging the gates of that migrant colony. We have those visuals. If we can just play up before we can go back to Manish, if you can show those shots of Kashmiri Pandits protesting, hitting. Anger and a sense of urgency that their issues must be resolved. Manish, do you think that this is an important phase for Kashmiri Pandits who are living in Kashmir and all those who plan to come to Kashmir in the future against government jobs, or generally they want to come back and return to their roots?
Hello, you're not
Yes,
audible.
yes, Manish, please go ahead.
Can you repeat this?
I'm saying that we saw in those visuals Kashmiri Pandits were protesting in Baramulla. They were banging at the gates of that colony. There was clearly a sense of anger and a sense of disappointment. They want to be given clear answers at this point in time, whether their lives are safe. And it's also an important, uh, you know, uh, important point for all those Kashmiri Pandits who are living outside of Kashmir, who want to come to Kashmir against government jobs or generally as such to return to their roots. It's an important phase where it goes from here on.
Yes, am I audible?
Yes, yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, at this point of time, Kashmir for Kashmiri Pandits, it's not safe. We are being selectively targeted in our offices, in the working hours. The current government, the current UT government has miserably failed in providing
Okay, we seem to have some problem with the audio there. Zafar Chaudhry, it's we've been covering Kashmir story for so long, but this is for the first time we saw organized protests by Kashmiri Pandits. Uh, I was there at Sheikhpura when that Pandit procession was rather dispersed by police by using force, and then we saw protests in different areas like Baramulla and in South Kashmir. Do you think it's a critical time for the
It's
government
indeed.
as well as for the Kashmiri Pandits?
It's indeed a very critical time. I mean, I don't know whether my Kashmiri Pandit friends who are in this frame they do agree with me or not, but there has been an over politicization of Kashmiri Pandits. It's not a recent trend. It has been happening for last more than 2 decades. Over politicization. When you over politicize a community, that community becomes vulnerable, and you make a community vulnerable, and you don't put in place a proper strategy, a proper plan for their security, and that's what then it happens. I wanted to respond to another very interesting thing. I have known Brigadier Gupta as a very sensible and very thoughtful, security analyst. That this early, normalization narrative was creative to attract investment and create development infrastructure. If there is no peace, so what's the purpose of creating this narrative for infrastructure and investment and development? I can say that there is no process towards building peace happening in Jammu and Kashmir at the moment. The whole thing is going in one direction: development, poverty, and so on and so forth. These are the things which are being projected as a solution for the whole issue. There is one small example that I would like to, highlight and
Yes, yes.
offer as a food for thought to the
Yes.
audience. So we talk about a number of things. Someone might like to suggest that let's have a peace process, let's have a dialogue with different stakeholders. Someone might want to suggest that let's have a completely kinetic approach. Let's do a crackdown in Kashmir. So all of these things have been tried at various points of time. The current situation is of a crackdown. There is no dialogue. There is no peace process that's going on. Probably we can try to repeat a model that existed between 2002, initiated by Prime Minister Vajpayee, sustained by Prime Minister Manmohan Singh, that lasted until 2008. So 4 or 5 years of small window of peace. What was the key element in that? If one has to take a lesson from that, what was the key element? That government of India, government of Jammu and Kashmir, and key political and social leaders in Kashmir, they were all on the one page to build peace in Kashmir. If you create the rivalries, if you create
But
the opponents within the society, that's not going
But
to be
Zafar Saab, I remember that phase also. There was also talks going on with Pakistan at that point in time. There was the opening of Srinagar Muzaffarabad Road, the Poonch Rawla Coat Road. That is not going to happen. In fact, when the delimitation report came out, Pakistan
so
gave out
today.
sharp comments, and that was actually India reacted to those comments also. So we are
Let me
seeing a
say,
different sort of a situation now. So going back to that era, the ground
no, no.
situation may have
Let
completely
me see.
changed now.
Let me say one thing. Pakistan has got no
Yeah,
locus standi on delimitation or any internal processes in Jammu
yeah.
and Kashmir at the moment. I will never suggest that you engage Pakistan in a dialogue and build Pakistan's stake in Kashmir. That's not required. What is needed is an engagement with the people of Jammu and Kashmir within. That is more important. If you say that you created this event on the August 5, 2019 to completely internalize this and exit Pakistan's stake whatsoever Pakistan had claimed in the past. So you removed that whole thing and you created you developed a new thing that this is the reality and we have to deal with this reality. No, post that August 5, you have to own the people of Jammu and Kashmir. You have to accept that they are your own. Then you have to engage with them. What are these? Are this is being the situation is being dealt with through
Let's
different
ask
pockets.
let's ask
There is no
Brigadier
grand
Saab.
strategy.
Brigadier Saab, why is it so difficult to engage with the people of Jammu and Kashmir?
Firstly, let me say the window which Zafar was talking, what did that window result in? Burhan Wani's strengthening of terrorism in Kashmir, open challenge to the authority of the sovereignty of the nation. That was the result of that window. Do we want that error to come back again? No. Secondly, the impression is being given is that the government of India thinks that the people of JNK are different and there's no concern for the people. That's wrong. The government of India is most concerned for the people of Jammu and Kashmir. As far as the peace
But then
process is
why aren't the
concerned,
why aren't
dialogue
the why aren't
is,
the parties?
please let me talk. Please let me talk.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
dialogue with whom? The people, if they continue to talk and they don't accept the reality, the ground reality, that 370 is gone. If they continue to make that a precondition, that remove 370, get 370 back, how can the dialogue take place? There has to be a common meeting point. They have to accept the reality and then talk. Then let new leadership come. People who are ready to accept this, they are there. Let them come. The government is opening, their windows are open. The government is carrying out negotiations with people who have accepted 370 as a real gone case. So to say that government is not working on this process is working. Maybe that process is slow.
There has to be a
I
common
don't
meeting
find any.
point.
Just 1 second.
You
I
have to
don't find
accept
any.
hold on, Zafar Saab. You have to accept the reality that 370 is gone, and then there could be some sort of an engagement or a way forward. Ifrajan, what do you say?
Just
Hmm.
5 seconds.
You see,
Just
this
five
is
seconds.
okay, sir.
Yeah, Zafar
Let
Saab,
Zafar Saab.
let her finish, then I'll come back to
Let
you.
Zafar
Yeah.
Saab sir finish, and then
Okay,
I'll
No,
come
that
in.
Zafar Saab, bye.
is in continuation to Brigadier Saab's statement.
Yeah.
I mean, this Article 370, I don't find any major agitation, any part of Kashmir where people are saying that you restore Article 370 and then we'll help you build peace. We can have a discussion beyond Article 370 also. So try to look at the situation in that context.
Okay, try to look at the situation from a different context, not necessarily always from the prism of Article 370. Ifrajan.
You see, Zafar Saab, when people say let's not look at the situation from the prism of Article 370, it is not just about an article in the Indian Constitution we are talking about. We are talking about how the state of India, the central government, has been dealing with the state government of Jammu and Kashmir by this bulldozing tactic. Whatever they want, they get it done, and they do not engage in any constructive dialogue. Article 370 abrogation was one of the major changes in, in the long line of what they've done through bulldozing whatever opinion people of Jammu and Kashmir had. It is one of the one other step in that line. So we are talking about, so let's not look at Article 370 just as the article. Let's look at it as a behavior pattern that the central government, unfortunately, ever since Nehru ji has been treating with the people of Jammu and Kashmir with. That is the first point. The second point, if we have to build up long-term peace in Jammu and Kashmir, one thing that the BJP government should not, and any government should not do, is that it should not pit the two communities against each other. It should not pitch the two communities against each other. What we've seen is that there was a disempowerment of the majority of people of Jammu and Kashmir. They have not been allowed to vote in their state assembly for last 8 years now. They've not been allowed to have their own chief minister. They now cannot have their own state assembly until we are a UT. They cannot make their own laws under the state UT. A lot of this is done where one community is pitched against the another community, that only when we disempower this lot will we able to empower the other lot. This does not work, and this is dangerous.
Brigadier Saab, just a point before we come back to this, we sort of move away from the point that we started the discussion from. सुनील पंडिता, अभी भी आपका इरादा है, जिस तरह से हम 2 साल पहले आपने काफी कश्मीरी पंडित थे, वो वापस आना चाहते थे और वो तैयार थे यहाँ पे नौकरियां हासिल करके कश्मीर में सेटल होने के लिए, अभी भी इस तरह मुमकिन है जिस तरह के हालात बने हैं, या कि अब उसमें थोड़ी चेंज आई है?
सर, अब तो बिल्कुल ऐसा लग रहा है कि अब तो बिल्कुल नहीं जा सकते। पहले तो ऐसे लगता था कि हम जाएंगे जरूर, लेकिन अभी जो हालात है, जो हमारे भाइयों के साथ, खासकर जिस हिसाब से शेखपुरा में हुआ, बडगाम में हुआ है, जो कि फोर्स की वजह से हुआ है। मैं मानता हूँ मिलिटेंट जो है वो तो गुनाहगार है, उसने तो जो है उसको तो हमारे साथ दुश्मनी है, लेकिन हम तो ट्रू नेशनलिस्ट है, कश्मीरी पंडित तो ट्रू नेशनलिस्ट है। उसके बाद यदि इसके ऊपर जो लाठियां बरसाएं तो किसके सहारे हम जाएंगे? हमें ये उम्मीद था कि भारतीय जनता पार्टी हमारी अपनी सरकार है, ये हमें वहां पर जो अब रहने के लिए कुछ न कुछ जुगाड़ करेगी। लेकिन आपके माध्यम से मैं पूरे बरादरी को, पूरे कम्युनिटी को मैं अपील कर रहा हूँ, भारत सरकार फेल हो गया हमें रैपटेट करने में। प्लीज हमारी अब मदद कीजिए। आप मस्जिदों में आज बाहर निकलीजिए, आप इमामों को बोल दीजिए, आपके जितने भी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन बाहर निकल लीजिए, अब दुनिया को दिखा दीजिए वी कश्मीरी आर वन। हमें इन पॉलिटिशियन से कोई मतलब नहीं है, जिस पॉलिटिशियन को जो पॉलिटिक्स खेलने खेलने दीजिए, लेकिन हमें दिखाना है इस समय। This is the time.
Last word to you, Manish. Manish, why is it important? Coming back to the topic, is that this is the situation on the ground. We may be talking about the larger issue, but the specific problem that is staring us in the face is what's happened in Sheikhpura, what's happened in Baramulla, what's the situation on ground, what happened in South Kashmir when the Jammu Kashmir policeman was killed. We saw all of that. Those are the things that are happening on the ground. Manish?
Hello. Yes, am I audible?
Yes, Manish, please go ahead.
Yes, actually, I just my last word is Governor Manoj Sinha should talk to the representatives of PM package employees, the Kashmiri Pandit employees, and not talk to the BJP personnel here in the union territory of J&K. He should talk to the employees body. He should take them into confidence and listen to their grievances. The bureaucratic apparatus in the UT government is using its pen to oppress these package employees by trivializing the issue of their life. It's not a service-related issue, I repeat. It is a matter of life and death. Governor Manoj Sinha should talk to these employees.
People have expectations, particularly people who have suffered, who are suffering on the ground. They have expectations and they have a right to ask security and safety from the government and the rights that they deserve. So obviously they are asking those questions, and one would hope that situation improves on the ground, peace returns. Okay, quickly, Brigadier Saab, before I wrap up.
I have no objection to what Manish was asking. Yes, if they want to meet the governor, and they must meet. There's no objection to that, and it's their right. They must do that. But my sister Ifra Jahan, I like her. She comes with a fully prepared speech and narrative, But one thing is she must understand. By talking of that we should not communalize the situation and all that, she's trying to like the kettle calling the pot black. Who is communalizing situation in Kashmir? It is Mehbooba Mufti and Umar Abdullah, the ones who are vying with each other to occupy the space of Hurriyat. They are communalizing. They are following the same strategy with Hurriyat was following. And my appeal to government of India is that you gave long rope to Hurriyat. Please don't give long rope to them.
Okay. We have the Amarnath Yatra is just round the corner. Home Minister Amit Shah had a meeting with the top security brass of Jammu and Kashmir in Delhi. And obviously everybody would want a peaceful yatra and peace to return to Kashmir Valley so that people from all communities live in peace, and those people who come to work in Kashmir, Kashmiri Pandits who are living here with their families. Primarily, they have come here because of work, and there are others like the person from Jammu who was killed in that grenade blast in Baramulla. So clearly, everybody wants to live in a peaceful atmosphere, and it's the duty of the government to provide that peaceful atmosphere. Thanks to all our panelists for joining us today, and that's all we have in today's show. Thanks to our viewers.
It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.